Hi everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. Well, it is the last week of a challenge that I have been participating in for the entire month of August called the Every Bit Counts Challenge, where my friend Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead has challenged gardeners and homesteaders to preserve something every single day in the month of August. I've had a great time preserving food every day in the month of August, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm ready for a break. But the garden really isn't complying with that request to have a break. It is still pumping out tons of veggies. So honestly, I just need to keep on going and get as much produce as I can preserved for the rest of the year. Now, last video, we left off right at the beginning of our sweet corn harvest. And so the last portion of the last video was of my first canning project for sweet corn. We left off the last video on day 26. That's the day that I did the first round of corn. On the 27th, which was yesterday, I didn't film, but I did can all of these pints of sweet corn. I actually canned 23 pints of sweet corn. Now I have a little tip for you guys, and many of you suggested it on my last video because as I was taking out jars from the pressure canner, I think it was of diced tomatoes, you noticed that there was like a hard water film on some of my jars. And I have some of that same hard water film on some of these jars because I pressure canned them. A great suggestion from several people was to add a little bit of vinegar at the bottom of your canning water in your pressure canner, and that will have your jars coming out just beautiful and clean without any hard water deposit. And I have done that in the past, and occasionally when I don't want to deal with wiping off the jars, I do that still. But I have found over time that sometimes my rings rust faster when I'm using vinegar either in the pressure canner water or in my water bath canning water. So for the most part, I just don't do that anymore, and I just wash off my jars with a little bit of vinegar water. This is a wet rag with some vinegar water, and they come clean. Now that this batch of corn is done, the jars are cleaned, I labeled them, put them away. Now it's time to move on to these tomatoes. This here is a half bushel and then a bowl of mostly the sauce tomatoes. So I do want to turn them into sauce. So I'm gonna be coring and skinning these guys, breaking them up a little bit, and then putting them in my big 18-quart Nesco roaster so that they can cook down nicely. I'll blend them up and can them. Generally that takes more time than I have for the day, but I'll pick up with that part of it tomorrow. After I get these in the Nesco, I do have one preserving project to do before the end of the day, but I want to get these going first. We're just gonna skin these tomatoes real quick and get them in the roaster. Now that the tomatoes are all in the roaster, I'm just gonna go through and kind of squish each one of them up a little bit, just to get them smaller so they can cook down faster. Once I squish most of these up, I'll just turn the heat on 250 degrees, which is the slow cooker temperature. And I'll just cook these down and allow a lot of the liquid to evaporate so we get a nice thick tomato sauce. I do have some on the stove top that I worked on a couple days ago that's been in the refrigerator waiting for me to be ready to puree it up and can it. I'm gonna hit it with my immersion blender so that I can just really quickly can those up for today. This turned into a beautiful sauce. So I'm just going to put some in some pint jars and we're gonna can this tomato sauce. Okay guys, that gorgeous sauce from last evening I canned up, and it was 4 pints and 1/2 pint. Turned out gorgeous. I do need to wipe them off yet. I'll do that in a minute, but I also want to show you the tomatoes that we skinned and cored and put into the Nesco roaster last night. It's doing very well. I think that within a couple of hours I'll be able to blend that up and can it also. Let me show you what that looks like today. Looking good. Still a little bit soupy for what I'm looking for, but it is looking great. This morning, before Kevin and I did our chores, we did a bunch of picking in the garden. We actually only picked sauce tomatoes. All of a sudden, all of our tomatoes are coming ripe like at one time. So we picked about 2 bushels of paste tomatoes. Not all of them are 100% ripe. I'm gonna be going through today and coring and skinning the ones that are ripe enough to turn into sauce. And then the others I'm gonna keep on the counter until they're more ripe. Also, last night Kevin picked probably 1/2 bushel of okra that is in the waiting for me to do something with. Now in the background you might hear a bunch of noise. Kevin is outside mowing again. So these are wiped off, and as soon as the top's dry a little bit, I'll label them, and then I need to get started sorting through the paste tomatoes and coring and skinning them for the roaster. I always label with the year for sure, but there are some things that I don't label what's inside of it because I know, or I can tell from the outside of the jar. But in the case of tomato sauce, I do add the word sauce, because when I make ketchup and barbecue sauce, they all look the same. Okay, I've separated out the tomatoes that are ripe enough to go ahead and core and peel and get into the roaster. It ended up, this right here is about 110 tomatoes. And I separated out the ones that aren't quite ripe enough to work with today, and I counted, there are about 60 of them on the back counter waiting for another day. So I am gonna get started coring and skinning these guys so I can get them in the Nesco roaster. Before I get started skinning those tomatoes, I'm just going to transfer the sauce that I have cooking down here into just a pot here. It's to the point where it's almost done, and I want to use this pot to cook down all of the tomatoes that I'm going to be skinning now rather than getting out my second roaster. So surprisingly, all of those tomatoes for today fit in my Nesco roaster. I have it on, and I'm gonna cover it so that the tomatoes can start softening and cooking down. And then after it's really hot, actually I just take off the lid so that the water can evaporate a lot faster. So this is going to be cooking for at least until tomorrow, and then maybe I will have a chance to can it. Maybe it will be thick enough for me to can it tomorrow. I am gonna can the sauce that I transferred from here onto the stovetop. First, we're going to have dinner, and then we'll be back and I will can that up. Done with dinner, now we are going to just blend this sauce up, and then we'll just get that into the canning pot. just like last night, the sauce is going to be filled in the jar just up to the 1/2 inch mark above the top of the jar. Okay, it's day 29 in the Every Bit Counts challenge. We are almost at the end of this challenge and I am going strong. By the end of the day, I don't feel as energetic as I do in the beginning of the day, so I have to capitalize on the energy that I've been given when I have it. So yesterday afternoon, we finished up by canning some tomato sauce. This is what I ended up getting, 5 pints of tomato sauce. It is the most beautiful tomato sauce. But today we have some projects. I needed to take a break of tomatoes because I have some other things that need to be processed and taken care of. Let me show you what we're working on today. We have a giant pile of okra here and my first really nice harvest of Ajvarski peppers. They are my very favorite red roasting peppers and we are gonna roast these today and get them ready for storage. But first, I have a batch of things coming out of the freeze dryer that I wanna pull out, show you guys what it looks like and then package it up because then I'm gonna defrost the freeze dryer and put some of these okra rounds in it. Okay, we have the 4 trays. Now these are diced green bell peppers from the garden. And I'm gonna use this big funnel to help me out. This is actually easier with 2 people, but right now Kevin is working at farm property in the greenhouse. So I'm gonna do the best that I can here by myself. And there is plenty of room yet in this bag, so I'm gonna put the second tray in there. I'm gonna put an oxygen absorber in each of these bags. Use a heat sealer to seal these Mylar bags. Since the freeze dryer is now empty, I'm going to put some of these okra in there. I'm gonna dice them up, not dice them, slice them into those little circles. And I'm gonna put 4 trays of the okra in the freeze dryer. I actually really like chopping vegetables. It was one of the jobs that I did in the kitchen for my mom when I was growing up. I got to chop the vegetables, I got to chop up the nuts in her baking, and I just have always really enjoyed chopping vegetables. Here is the last of the okra. That took a while. So I have filled all 4 of the trays to go into the freeze dryer, and then I've started 1 freezer bag, a gallon-sized freezer bag, and these will stay in the freezer until I have more room in the freeze dryer. They'll just be waiting, they'll be on deck. I'm just gonna carefully take these 4 trays out to the freeze dryer. And the last project of the day is we're gonna be taking care of these Ajvarski red roasting peppers. We are gonna roast these in the oven underneath the broiler, and we're gonna put these in the freezer so that I can use them over the winter. My favorite way to use roasted red peppers is in roasted red pepper hummus, and the second favorite way is roasted red pepper soup. So I'm gonna show you how to prepare these peppers, and I'm gonna show you how to roast them under the broiler. Well, the very first thing I'm gonna do is grease a cookie sheet. I am using coconut oil today because I think coconut oil does a really great job preventing things from sticking to cookie sheets. Now, there are two ways that you can do this. You can poke holes in your pepper all over the place so that they don't explode in the oven. That's a terrible mess. Or what I do is I just cut the stem portion out and take the seeds out right away. Eventually you'll be taking the seeds out anyway, and I find that doing it before they're roasted is a lot less messy. And then for me, they are going on the pan just like this. I'm actually going to save these seeds too while I'm at it. Since the peppers were in their ripest form as red peppers, this is a perfect time to save seeds from them. So I'm all set to broil these, so I just need to turn on the oven. When you're broiling the peppers, the point is for the skin to become black and burnt. That's where all that really good flavor is gonna come from. It's gonna penetrate the skin. That flavor is gonna penetrate through the skin into the meat of the red pepper, and that's where all that wonderful flavor is gonna come from. They're looking pretty good, so we're just going to turn these over, all of them, back in the broiler. Oh yeah. Okay, they look good. They look good. So now we're gonna take them all out of here, off of here, and put them in a pot or in a bowl or something that you can cover, because they're gonna steam in here, and that is what is gonna help the skins to come off of the flesh of the peppers. So we're just gonna leave them here for quite a while. You can even leave them here until they cool down and then come back to them, and I'll show how to peel all the charred skin off of there. We're gonna take each pepper out one by one, and we're just gonna peel off the skin. Now the skin, if it's left on, it's kind of plasticky. It's not very tasty. The texture is not very good at all. So taking it off will also help in that way. So we're just gonna take that all off, and then we're gonna set the peppers aside. All my peppers are peeled, and now I'm gonna store them. Because I know that I'm gonna use these within the next year or less, I'm gonna package them and put them in the freezer. My roasted red pepper hummus recipe uses 2 peppers. So I'm going to freeze 2 peppers, each in a little bag here. And then I'm gonna package all of the individual bags into a freezer bag so they're all together. And then these individual bags, I'm just going to kind of roll up to get most of the air out of them. Seal the bag. And then for double protection in the freezer, I'm gonna put them in a freezer bag like that. So I'll just have a bunch of these in each freezer bag. I can pull these out whenever I want to make hummus, or whenever I have a recipe that calls for roasted red peppers. I ended up with 7 meals worth in this batch. I'm excited about that. And in the winter, we're gonna love having hummus with roasted red peppers from our garden. Back again for another fun-filled day of preserving. It is day 30 of the Every Bit Counts challenge, where every day in the month of August, I will be doing some preserving along with lots of other people around the country and around the world. Actually, it's been a ton of fun to watch everybody participate in this. Now, yesterday was a really nice break from tomatoes, but today, back to tomatoes. A couple days ago, I had tomato sauce cooking in my 18-quart Nesco roaster, but I transferred them to 2 different small stock pots so they could stay in the refrigerator until I was ready to blend them up and can them. That is what we're going to do today. If we can get through all of this sauce today, I will be very pleased. And then tomorrow will be the last day that I'll have to do this every single day. Now, the harvest does not just stop because the Every Bit Counts challenge is done. It continues to come in, and I plan to continue preserving, but I may not do it every single day. I may save things and do it every other day or something like that, but it has been a great experience doing this every single day. But let's get started. We got things to do. Let me show you the 2 sauce pots that I have going here. They've cooked down really nicely. I'm really pleased. I haven't blended them yet, obviously. I need to get out my immersion blender. Well, today is the very last day of the Every Bit Counts challenge, and we're gonna spice it up a little bit. We're not gonna do tomatoes, which I actually have a ton more to deal with, but I thought we would finish with something really fun. Now, we have tons of extra eggs right now, and recently we've been freeze drying most of our extra eggs, but today we're gonna do one of my favorite recipes, and it is jalapeno spicy pickled eggs. It's not your grandma's pink pickled eggs. It uses the beet juice. These are amazing. Now, these will last in the refrigerator for about 3 months, but I guarantee they are not gonna last that long because they're gonna get eaten before then. I love this recipe. I've shared it before, but it is definitely worth sharing again. Now, one very frustrating thing about hard boiling fresh eggs, farm fresh eggs, is that they notoriously peel terribly. But I have found that steaming them in an Instant Pot or an electric steamer like this is the perfect way to hard boil them, and the shell basically just falls right off. So that's what we're gonna do today. I have 2 dozen eggs that we're gonna be pickling, and we're gonna be hard boiling them in this Instant Pot. Make sure that it is closed, the vent is closed. Now we are gonna put this on the manual setting. We're gonna cook it for 5 minutes. And then after it's done cooking, we're gonna let it sit for 5 minutes, but then we're going to open the vent. We're gonna manually open the vent after 5 minutes. So 5-minute cook time, 5 minutes sit, open the vent. In the meantime, let's get the rest of our ingredients ready. So first, we're going to slice up 4 jalapenos and set them aside, and then we're going to peel and smash 4 large cloves of garlic and set those aside. For our pickling solution, we're going to start with 2 2/3 cup water. And we're gonna add the same amount of apple cider vinegar. It's a 50-50 water vinegar solution. We're gonna add 2 2/3 tablespoon of salt. I'm using pink Himalayan salt. Now we're gonna be using some other spices today, and I just wanna let you know that my salt, and all of my bulk seasonings and spices. If I can't grow them myself, I order them from Azure Standard because I absolutely love the quality of their products. They offer a lot of organic products at a good price. So you'll see a couple more of those coming up. So we're gonna set this all aside until the eggs are done and ready to go into our jar. A perfect, beautiful egg. Just rinse that off in the water. And we're gonna be putting them in these half-gallon jars. Well, it looks like I could have added probably 6 more eggs to this. There are a couple more things that we are going to add into here, some seasoning, some spices. The first thing is whole peppercorns, black peppercorns. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of that. I'm just going to put that right on top and let it go down all over the place. And I'm going to do the same thing with this yellow mustard seed. I also get this from Azure Standard. 1 teaspoon. Again, we're just gonna put it right on top of there. And now we're gonna add our pickling solution. I'm just gonna cover this with a lid and a ring pretty tightly. Give it some shakes. Now I am gonna leave this on the counter until it is room temperature. So for maybe an hour or 2, and then it's gonna go in the refrigerator. These are not like canned and preserved. These need to be refrigerated, but they are gonna be fantastic and they'll be good for up to 3 months in the refrigerator if they last that long. But they are gonna be fantastic, and I think that this was a perfect way to wrap up the Every Bit Counts challenge. So that is the end of week 5 of the Every Bit Counts challenge, and actually the end of the entire challenge. What a great week, what a great month, and I'm so thankful for everything that I preserved over this month. Special thank you to my friend Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead who initiated this challenge. It's been a lot of fun. You guys don't forget to check her out on both Instagram and YouTube. So let's recap everything that was accomplished this week. We started off by finishing the first round of our harvest of our sweet corn, and I canned off camera 23 pints of sweet corn. We had lots of sauce tomatoes come out of the garden, and I did 3 rounds of canning tomato sauce for a total of 25 pounds of tomato sauce. We also had a giant harvest of okra, which I sliced up most of it to go into the freeze dryer. We got 4 trays into the freeze dryer, plus some extra that went into the freezer. We had a really nice harvest of the Adjavarsky red roasting peppers. So we roasted them under the broiler, packaged them up for the freezer, and I got 7 meals worth of roasted red peppers. Finally, we did something really fun and preserved 2 dozen eggs by making my favorite jalapeno spicy pickled egg recipe. You guys, it's been really fun spending a little bit of every single day with you guys. Even though the challenge is done, I still have lots of preserving to do, so I'm sure you'll see me back in the kitchen doing more preserving on a video here and there. You guys, thank you so much for following along. Remember, if you're enjoying our videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button below. And remember also that the best way to help us here on the homestead is just to share our videos on your social media. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care and God bless.